Welcome to our ongoing customer success webinar series. I'm your host, Matt Vandenbeld, and I'm also your speaker today. Today's topic is going to be what's new March 2019 related to our M6 release. We do these webinars bi-weekly. We may be changing that format a little bit and adding even more content. We do office hours 3 times a week now for each time zone for Americas, APJ, and EMEA to reach out to everybody that we can. So a little bit of housekeeping. Everybody is muted in the Zoom call. Those watching on Twitch, can you ask the questions on Stream Chat? In the Zoom, you can put it into the Q&A window and we'll answer it. I do kind of want to get to all of the slides today, but I will definitely answer any questions that do come up. So with that, I guess I'll give a little bit of an introduction myself. Matt Vandenbeld. I run this webinar series. I'm a customer success architect on our VMware cloud team, working day to day with this product and all of our customers. So we might as well jump right into it. And one thing that we always kind of like to mention, or I like to mention here anyway, is that our roadmap is publicly available. It's good to kind of consume these. I'd like to discuss, more in depth some of the releases that we have. But it's all there. It's all on the web. You can see what's coming, what's in the product, when it released, when it's going to be coming up. So it's all there on cloud.vmware.com/vmc-aws/roadmap. Highly recommend you go there if you have any roadmap questions, because most of it is going to be all on there. Now, we always like to cover this one a little bit as well. So when we talk about VMware Cloud, when we really talk about 4 different areas of development of our features. And at the bottom is kind of planned. So this is something that's under consideration or planning for future development. It doesn't have a date yet. It's not necessarily being actively worked on. It may be, but it's not currently on that the feature roadmap now. Do for sure always suggest us ideas, because we will take them. We will definitely put them into plan. We love the feedback, and we have added quite a few features specifically for customers, and customers have asked. Then once they're, we just kind of decide on them, they move into developing. So this is active development to testing. This can take anywhere from a couple days to a few months, depending on the scope of the feature that they're trying to put in. Once it's in developing, we put it into preview. So this is, we think it's ready for prime time. But what we do is we grab a select group of customers, enable this for them. They do a lot of testing, so there is a lot of paperwork and homework that goes along with this for those that are in preview. And then once we get through the preview and make sure everything's stable and is delivering the feature and the functionality that we intended it to, then it becomes available. And once it's available, now everybody has it. Now, there is a little bit of caveat because of the differences in some of the AWS regions. They may not be available in all regions. An example of this is multi-AZ clusters in our Sydney data center right now, because they only have 2 availability zones. We need 3. This is all something that we are continuing to work on going forward. But bear those in mind. All of the stuff I'm going to be talking today is available. So this is all stuff that if you were to go into your SDDC now or to start a new SDDC, you would get those features. And little caveat on there that I kind of believed over, everything's subject to change. So here is a little brief overview of what's new in March 2019. So this is our M6 release, and for those that don't really know what that means, it's kind of our milestones, major release, whatever you kind of want to make of that M moniker. But we're actually moving away from those. We do have M7 in the pipe, but after that we're going to be moving more to a date-based nomenclature for our release designations. So you'll start to see us more referring to the March 2019 release versus M6, but these are the same things right now. So one of the biggest enhancements, we did add 3 new regions, Canada, Paris, and Singapore. We're continuing to deliver on that promise of extending this into every AWS region that AWS is in, and we're just kind of plugging right along. Again, these regions will float up and down sometimes in priority list. You'll see it in another slide here, the next slide, what's currently planned for the next ones, but some of them might move up or down depending on customer demand as well. So the new instance availability, R5 Metal, is out, which has the EBS back storage, which we're calling Elastic vSAN. Again, we're going to go into detail of all these. This is just a brief overview of what's coming up. External storage through MSP, Managed Service Provider Faction. Really cool offering that they have going on. If you want to learn more about Faction's offering, we did a webinar series with them, I believe about a month or two ago. So definitely check it out on our YouTube channel if that's something you want more detail onto. Again, we'll cover it a little bit more here shortly. Proactive scale up at critical cluster storage utilization. So this is the first start into our EDRS functionality. So your cluster will scale when you hit certain storage threshold. Where compute and memory is coming. New site recovery features. There's been some network enhancements and some database enhancements. And I kind of lumped some other stuff into database enhancements, but the enhancements are intended for the database. We've also added something that's a very highly requested feature, and that's flexible vCenter permissions model for custom roles and privileges. Now, this doesn't get you anything more. It just gives you some more flexibility. And we have added some more network insight support for traffic analysis, migration planning, and troubleshooting. So some of that was in a previous release. Some of that is in preview, but most of the network insight functionality is there. So let's jump right into it. Again, we have a list on the left here. Green is everything that's available. Blue is everything that's coming. So again, we added Singapore. We added Central Canada, which is the only Canadian data center AWS has. And Europe, we added Paris. And going into Q2 2019, we're looking at Sao Paulo, Seoul, Osaka Local, and Mumbai. Mumbai is actually fairly high demand for us as well, so we're working on definitely expanding. You can see more into that Asia Pacific realm. And then for the second half of this year, we're looking at Sweden, Hong Kong, Bahrain, and GovCloud US East. So we are definitely, like I said, planning to expand, and we will continue to expand until we are in every single AWS data center. We mentioned this, you probably heard this a lot. There's been a lot of talk about this R5 host. This is where we take the EBS back storage and anywhere from 15 to 35 terabyte increments, that's raw, per host, that you can now add to an R5 metal host, which is a little bit higher memory, a little bit more CPU as well. So it's a bigger overall host. This is really to offer the solution to a lot of the feedback we get from a lot of customers where they have difficulty where they hit their storage thresholds long before they hit the computer memory. So this is definitely an option that can definitely be in there. And I think Robin has just jumped in, and I'll just mute her. And this is coming, so it is available. It's not necessarily available in all regions yet, but we're working on getting it available in all regions. It uses a GP2 back disk type. There's going to be more features and functionality coming around this soon, but this is kind of our second host, our second foray into offering more variety for everybody to consume. External source of the MSP. So this is something that is a deal that's worked out exclusively with Faction today. There will probably be more coming in the near future, and probably further down the pipe. Potentially there may be options from this from us. Well, we'll see. What they offer is, I believe they're called cloud control volumes. They're NFS data stores that they extend and map to our hosts. So again, this is through Faction. This is not through us. So if you want to kind of consume this type of offering, definitely, talk to them. You can send us an email at cloudcs@vmware.com or tweet at me at vcloudmatt, and I can get you in contact with our Faction brothers over there that we work with quite closely, and they will, can reach out to you and give you more information if you want. But this is definitely a much higher capacity type host, not as fast as what is offered in our i3 or potentially in our R5, but it's really good for disaster recovery, and it's good for kind of general storage type things. Maybe not your tier 1 database type workloads, but there's definitely a fit for this, and something that I think is really worth a look into if you're very, very storage constrained right now. So we mentioned this a little bit earlier as well, the proactive automated scale up. So this is what we call EDRS, and there's an option, and it's a little button on your SDDC, which has 3 options. So you'll always have scale up for storage only, and that's to protect us and to protect you, because we've all been there. As anybody who's been an administrator around for a long enough time has filled up a data store, and it's not a good time for anybody. So we really make sure that does not happen. So we will actually send you a message at 70%, and we'll actually automatically scale up at 75% to add another host to maintain that space so that we don't run into issues. That is available today. And what we're going to be adding, and what is in some of the interface now, is you can set the minimum cluster size and the maximum cluster size and optimize for lowest cost. So there's a little bit of math and a little bit of difference in how we do this behind the scenes. So for best performance, we definitely scale the hosts up much more quickly when they hit thresholds and remove the host more slowly. So we don't have a lot of necessarily rubber banding, but we want to make sure that we scale up and then keep it kind of up in case you hit that burst again, so you don't need to hit another scale up. And optimize for lowest cost is kind of the opposite of that, where we will, scale up a little bit more slowly, and then when the capacity is back down to where it was before, or whatever, your burst workload's over, we'll remove it quicker that way. So those are kind of the two options, and there's going to be more options coming that you can tweak the variables for CPU percentages and memories and stuff like that. But this is what's available today, and a very kind of cool option that allows that elastic scaling, so you don't have to kind of keep a constant eye on everything that's going on. So kind of around some of that scaling and stuff like that. So one of the things we've added was a custom core count, and you'll see a little picture here where you can actually now select the number of cores presented per host. And again, this is to answer that use case of, I got these database workloads and I pay by the core for my licensing, but I need to have more hosts to fit my storage in. Well, and I'm not using all the CPU. Well, now we allow you to disable cores to cut down on that licensing so that you can pay less for your licensing for, certain vendors. I'm sure we all know who I'm talking about, while still, delivering a very, very good level of service and making a good balance of your funds and really becoming more effective. We've also added native support for Microsoft SQL Server clustering without the need for some iSCSI stuff that was kind of a workaround for a while. So supports 2, 4, and 8 node application clusters and up to 64 shared disks. Some of the operation storage and motion snapshots and cloning are not supported, but you really shouldn't be doing that with a Microsoft SQL cluster anyway. It kind of defeats some of the purpose of why you would have it, is to move it around a lot. So those are new of M6. So we're continuing to add more features and more functionality and more support going forward to answer those tier 1 and critical application type use cases. So moving on to the next one, vCenter flexible permissions control. So again, this is one I touched on briefly. So again, this doesn't give you more access, but it gives you more granular ability to create more roles. So we've identified that a lot of our customers are saying, I have an auditor, or I have this particular help desk users maybe, or something in that neighborhood where they have this really kind of defined role. So now we allow for that custom roles and a custom assignment across the environment. Before, we forced you to use pre-made groups, which covered I would say 95% of the use cases out there. But this is really to add to that other 5% and really give people more flexibility about who they give access to where. And this is inside the virtual center within your SDDC. So just to be clear, this is not a SDDC level role in our cloud services portal or anything like that. This is within the vCenter, something that everybody is probably very familiar with, how our how our permissions and stuff work. But so now we're able to do a little bit more with those permissions. To me, this is the most exciting one, and I think it's probably because I'm a little bit of a site recovery geek at heart. That's kind of been my focus at VMware for quite a few years traditionally, is the BCDR use cases. So the support for fan-in, I think, really opens up a lot of fantastic use cases out there. So if you have 2 data centers in the same city, kind of a little bit dispersed, so that you kind of do workloads of both, but you really want to protect that somewhere else in case something regionally happens. You could protect both of those data centers to VMware Cloud on AWS. You could even protect multiple VMware Cloud on AWSs to VMware Cloud on AWS. So this is the very same as the fan-in topology that is on premises right now. We've added that functionality to VMware Cloud. And again, to me, this is a really, really cool use case that I think can really enable your thinking and your availabilities of your data center in the event of a major disaster. Right? This is to me a fantastic way of protecting your workloads while minimizing some costs, so you don't have to run another data center somewhere. You don't need to manage 3 other data centers somewhere. You can take all 3 of your data centers today and site recovery it to one of our AWS regions. Perhaps it's across the country, perhaps it's a little bit more regionally close in the middle in Ohio or something like that. But you can really offer DR at a very cost-effective rate now, which I think is a really, really fantastic thing. That's something that all customers should really, really look into. We've also added a site recovery connectivity trouble checker in the troubleshooting tab. So there's a troubleshooting tab when you look into your SDDC and VMware Cloud on AWS in our CSP. So in there now you will see troubleshooting tasks where you can run a test and it'll check to see if you may have some firewall rules not open, other silly things that can happen like that are just stopping this from working. So as opposed to having to kind of reach out and ask support and stuff, you can actually kind of take a quick look at that first and possibly identify your problem very quickly. So along kind of the networking talk, so some of these features sound kind of small, but they're actually very, very big and actually very, very useful. So for anybody that was using the default logical network, and it's actually a logical segment now, so I might have to change the slide, but what it actually is when we created a SDDC before M6, and you can actually see it in this picture here at the bottom, we automatically created a 192.168.1.0/24 network. And the idea and the premise behind it was we wanted people to be able to create an SDDC to start just creating workloads right off the bat, and there's a compute network available for them. Now, the problem is when you connect to a VPN or a direct connect on-prem and you start advertising routes and networks, this bumped into a lot of people's ranges. It bumped into a lot of default ranges for products and like Docker and stuff like that. And we actually found that no one was actually really using that default network. They didn't even know it was there. Most of the time they noticed it was there was when this network popped up on their routing tables, and they're kind of like, well, where did this come from? So we've now removed that. So that will not be created at the start. Nothing is stopping you after your SDDC is up and running to go and create that network. You can create whatever network you want. It's just, this is kind of a prevention of problems type thing that actually our group was kind of keen in getting removed from the product, just to, again, assist in functionality. You can actually see the picture here of the second item, which is the BGP routes for on-premises are now available in the VPN UI API. So when you open up the VPN screen under network and security, when you're looking at your SDDC in the cloud service portal, there's a button to view the advertised routes. So this is really handy for network admins to be able to see which routes are advertised, because we automatically advertise everything that you create in your network stack at your SDDC. And if somebody's having some issues with some traffics maybe going weird, those kinds of things, right, they can look in here and then say, hey, that 192.168.1, that's bumping into my on-prem range. I didn't know you guys had made that out there in the cloud. So that's definitely for just assisting it, and it's our first step in being able to potentially down the road maybe control which routes are advertised and which ones are not. That's still definitely a work in progress, something that's still being discussed, but at least now you have the visibility for it, and you can click on the other tab and see learned routes, so you can actually see what's coming back the other way. And now, when you look at your source NAT and the public, you can actually see the public IP. So this is actually a feedback for a lot of customers. It was quite difficult, and unfortunately, I didn't have a picture I could put in here. I should do that in this deck, but you couldn't actually see a lot of times the public IP that you were advertising out kind of to the internet for the services. So now we put it in a place that's relatively easy to find, and much more intuitive to get to, as opposed to we buried it in a couple other places, or you'd have to look at AWS. So that's definitely something that we enabled for everybody to ease the consumption. So, like I said, small changes, but again, we're building on this, and we're going to keep continuing to build. Also, bearing mention is this is for all of the NSXT side of things, not for the NSXV, but NSXV is starting to be phased out. in one of our M6P1 releases, which is coming soon. We're moving everybody from V to T, and T will be our one network stack going forward. So anybody that has VNRI on premises, Network Insight, identical thing, just offered as a SaaS into the cloud. So nothing really too different about it. It's actually nothing different about it. It's just now consumable in the cloud versus consumable on-prem. And we've added some functionality to make this to work with VMware Cloud on AWS. So this comes in really handy when you're looking at planning DFW rules, even edge rules, or you're having issues with, why is this traffic not for this application not getting to on-prem where this other application is? This can help you with all of those things. So it's really, really a very, very cool tool. And I think really kind of almost in this hybrid cloud world we're coming into is almost a necessary one. I mean, it's getting very different and very complex to figure out where all applications reside and talk to. And to a degree, we want to get away from that thinking of caring necessarily where all of these things are. But if we don't, we have to have a way of quickly troubleshooting things, enabling new services, all those kinds of things. This is really a product that's very, very, very keen on being able to deliver that to particularly your network administrators so they have a better understanding of what's going out there in the cloud world. And so this works with VMware Cloud on AWS. This works just with on-prem. This works with other clouds. So this is really kind of a potentially very over-encompassing tool that can help you across your entire hybrid cloud story. So I knew I kind of flew through a lot of that. So I'm going to try to maybe pause and see if anybody has any questions. There is some deals that are still ongoing for our single hosts and our production 3 hosts. And there is also a deal upcoming, if not already available, for our site recovery service as well. So that's definitely something that if you're interested in the service, now is kind of the time to jump on that. Like I said, this is M6. M7 will be our next release, and then, like I said, we're going to be changing the name of it. I think the naming of it is still kind of being worked over, but our M7 release is going to be targeting around the VMworld time frame. So we will have other patches. Like I said, we have a P1 patch coming in the next couple weeks. Our cloud services portal is constantly being updated with different and new features. So, don't just think that we're not doing anything till M7. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we always release, features and functions when they're ready. So that was the Lightspeed What's New in March 2019. And we will hopefully be doing this again when P1 releases. I don't see any questions out there. So I think we could maybe keep this to a shorter webinar if there's no questions. Again, if you have any questions in the future when you're watching this on YouTube, always you could email us at cloudcs@vmware.com or tweet at me again at vcloudmatt, and I can definitely answer them. If I can't answer them, I can get you somebody that can. If you have any ideas or suggestions for future webinars or any feedback, if you thought this was useful, absolutely let us know. I can handle constructive criticism as well, so don't be shy. And next week we're going to be having our office hours again. So again, we're going to be offering our office hours 3 times a week, every week. So that's if you're a new customer or you're just interested in the product and want to ask us about it and try to figure out how something works or any of those kinds of things. We do it on Tuesday for Americas, and that's going to be at 8 a.m. PST. I believe it's either 8 or 9. It's in the schedule. It's the events page. We also have EMEA on Wednesday, which is, I think, 10 o'clock a.m. GMT. And then we have APJ on Thursday, which is going to be at 10 a.m. AEPT, Australian Daylight Time. Anyway, so those are all available on the events page and Twitch. There is also going to be a recurring Zoom invite going out for that session for anybody that just wants to jump on weekly or whenever they have questions. We will be having another official webinar series in 2 weeks, and this time we're going to be doing a refresher on HCX. Definitely one of our more popular videos out there, one of our more popular topics that comes up to talk about. I'm going to be bringing Dustin with me and potentially some others. We're going to be going over what's changed at HCX, as well as some lessons learned and some more stuff from the field. So with that said, no more questions. I thank everybody for their time, for coming out today, or for watching this on YouTube. Really do appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing everybody soon and getting everybody onto the platform. Thanks, and have a great night.